big regrets. Stop wasting your money. I keep wasting my money buying things I don't need. I keep buying roller stock from manufacturers which I have absolutely no use for. You've no use for it, but yet the cycle continues. We spend money when petrol prices and food prices are going through the roof and everyone's personal happiness is hitting the deck. So maybe we should think about what we buy before we actually buy it. Let's have a look at the rolling stock and locomotives I've bought and I now consider a huge waste of time and money. Right then, I think that we're all probably guilty of this to some sort of degree. You see a model in a model shop or online or whatever, and the price is really attractive and you think, oh, I want that, I'll buy it. So you hit click buy, or you get your wallet out and you hand over your money and you take the model home with you. And then you get it home and you have the honeymoon period of, oh, look at how shiny it is, look at the detail, listen to the sound and all that, and then you put it on your layout and then you run it around for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, however long the honeymoon period is. And then you come to it one day and you don't run it. You run something else, or you run a favourite locomotive or wagon from the past. All of a sudden your new model just gets put to one side, just for now, and then you play with it later, or you run it later or whatever, and then it never comes, and you end up with a £200 model or a £50 wagon just collecting dust, which is fine if you're a collector. I don't really consider myself to be a collector in the traditional sense. Yes, I have a collection of modern railway items and locomotives and wagons and whatever, but I'm not a collector in the sense that I'll get a big glass cabinet and I'll just buy hundreds and hundreds of wagons and locomotives and whatever and just stick them in a big cabinet and have them collecting dust, UV lighting, poisoning, or whatever you want to call it. You know, not poisoning, but you know what I mean. So yeah, I think this is probably the Yorkshireman in me. I just see it as a waste of money. If something's not being used or utilised or enjoyed, then it's a waste of money and it needs to either be replaced with something that does get used or sold and the money used for something else. When you think of what models are costing these days, is that such a bad stance to take, as it were? Now, of course, if you're a collector and you enjoy having models on display in your cabinet or whatever, that's absolutely fine. You do you, boo. That's lovely. For me, it's not the way forward for me personally, especially if you guys are anything like me and you're running on a very limited space, somewhat of a limited budget. My budget isn't as limited as a lot of people's out there, but it's certainly not unlimited. I certainly can't just go and go, yeah, do you know what, mine, I'll have 8 of them, 12 of them, and 6 of them, and whatever. I certainly don't put them all on credit. Yes, I've bought 1 or 2 on buy now and then pay a little bit and what have you. Like with Accurascale, they'll let you pay for models every now and again, or Great Eastern Models, funnily enough. You can ring up Anne and she'll put a model on lay-by for you, and you can pay her a couple of quid each week, and then when the model's there, it's paid for. So you don't quite feel the stress as much. But when you're going to do that, you really need to make sure the model you're paying for is one that you're actually going to run. For me, running a model, it depends on the type of layout that you have and the type of environment the model is meant for. Yes, I know we can do rule 1, but I have a very strange form of OCD where yes, I understand what rule 1 is. If I've got a certain wagon which does a certain type of job and the layout that's running on doesn't allow that wagon to do that certain type of job, it makes my brain go for I don't like it. No matter how much I try and convince myself otherwise, I can't convince myself to ignore that fact. Now, the type of layout you have and will greatly dictate the type of roller stock you're going to run, even if you do have rule 1 in place. For example, as many of you long-time subscribers will know, I used to have a fairly huge living room layout, which was a continuous run, like essentially it was like a dog bone type ship, and that was great because I had several areas to do several different jobs, and I had like a cement factory over here, and I had a TMD over here, and I had storage sidings in the middle, which is sort of like an on layout scenic filler yard to a degree, sort of in the middle, and it worked really well. But of course, space isn't always afforded to us, and I had to make a decision of have a happy family life or reduce the layout and so I've screwed into the back room, which is what we have here now, and I have the layouts on the wall, which is good because I have room for a layout between 6 and 8 foot in length. I can stack 3 or 4 of them on top of each other. Now I can use 1 or 2 of them without having to move anything, but the 3rd and 4th layouts will eventually, when they eventually make an appearance, will need to be lifted out. So really I can only run 2 at a time. So the question is, which layouts do I build to run the stock on them? For example, I've got a list of various types of rolling stock that I have, which you can't run on a heritage railway. Now, as you know, my railway is a heritage railway, a preserved line, but it's not just a willy-nilly excuse to run anything I want. No. There are rules. The locomotives have to still exist today, either in working order or not. There is a little bit of model license going on there, but provided that locomotive or piece of roller stock is still around today and it features on a heritage or preserved line somewhere, then I can get away with running it. For example, I could have the Flying Scotsman if that was my sort of thing, because that loco is still around and it features on preserved lines and it does mainline rail tour, so that would be a good choice for a preserved line. 66s, for example, I've got a Bachmann Evening Star. Evening Star has been and does feature on gala days and things for various heritage lines, so that is a great option. The P3 I've got, the P3, now the P3 I run, even though that particular number isn't in preservation, that locomotive is. North Yorkshire Moors Railways have got one, and there's a few others around the country in BR black with the later crest. So I can run that happily, knowing that yes, that is appropriate to have, because as we all know, heritage railways like to swap and borrow stock around, which is fantastic because everyone gets to play with the train. It's good. So going briefly back to the type of layout I have and why the rolling stock matters. Now that I don't have the continuous run, the type of trains that I run have changed. I find I get much more enjoyment out of running wagons and things, shunting and what have you, back and forth and all this lot, and maybe even a little ABC shuttle section which is coming soon. I just need to figure out which line I want to use for it. Anyway, moving on. So the shuttle thing and the shunting thing is where I get most of my enjoyment, because I can see the railway working, and that's good. It also means I don't have to have a massive amount of space, and I can model just a particular part of a scene rather than needing to model the full yard. I can just model, say for example, the top 3 lines of a 15-line yard. That's absolutely fine, and that's more or less what I do now, and that works really well. But with all that in mind, and knowing full well what the running capabilities of your layout are, do you, like me, find yourself falling victim to the Magpie Syndrome of, oh, I need to buy that, it's shiny, I want it now, give me it here? I know I certainly do, and it's probably not it's probably not sustainable in any way, shape or form of the imagination to continue just buying things willy-nilly, because I have got several pieces of rolling stock and locomotives which are all very expensive, and I bought them and ran them literally once or twice, and they've gone into a drawer so I can move on to something else. And there are certain pieces of rolling stock which never get put away, and they're always out on the layout. And certain locomotives as well, they're always out, always in run. Yes, we all have our favourites, but there are always a certain number of locos that are always out that never get put away. So what's the solution then? Do I just leave them collecting dust? Do I sell them on, like I mentioned earlier? Or do I build a layout for each piece of rolling stock? I essentially have that just sat there collecting dust and not doing anything, and then which layouts do I build, and will they even materialise? It's a tricky situation to be in, and it's not one which I know the answer to fully. I'm trying to muddle through this like everyone else is. Then of course you've got the age-old problem of space, how many layouts do you have, the size of them. So you need to know how much space you've got to work with and what sort of operations you want to run on your layout before you start buying stock willy-nilly, because it is a waste of money. It's a massive waste of money in my opinion, and hopefully a few of you agree with me on that. Bills are going up, costs more to get to work because petrol's so expensive, heating bill, things like that, and toys are always the first things to go and to suffer when these things go up in price. So are we really helping ourselves by running out and falling victim, I suppose you'd say, to the vendors out there that push constant deals to us and reduce prices? And this locomotive is now, well, it was £200, but for a limited time only, it's only 150 quid. Come and get them, because we've only got a few of them left. and they've actually got 3,000 of them in the warehouse. And then you go, oh, I want that, I want that. You go and buy it, and you get it, and you love it for 10 minutes, and then you put it away, and it's just collecting dust again. So what in my fleet then? What locomotives are on stock in my fleet fall into that category? Well, fasten your seatbelts and we'll have a quick look, shall we? So we'll start things off fairly steady. This is a Bachmann Class 24-1. It's not a Class 25. Yes, it's got the head cover things on there, but it's still classed as a Class 24. But this is the 1 variant. The 0 variant doesn't have this little head cover thing. Anyway, I bought this, I think it was last year at Wally, and I bought it purely because it was affordable, and I'd seen one before, and I thought, oh, that's really pretty, I like that. I paid the money for it and spent another 130 quid getting it DCC sound fitted, fitting a stay alive to it, spending a lot of time doing even if I do say so myself, a very good weathering job on the roof and the frames there. For a little while I ran it almost continuously, but then the nature of my layout changed and I no longer had a continuous run, and I made the heritage line I've got up there, and again I ran it a little bit on that. But I found myself more and more running other diesels and even steam engines in its place, and this has not run properly now for a good few months, despite the fact that it's a beautiful model, really well detailed, and Bachmann know what they're doing. You've got all the sprung buffers on there and everything else, so it is on eBay. This is now up for sale because I need to buy other things. Not only is this particular number not preserved, it's not a locomotive that sits close in my heart, it's just one that's there. Nothing special about it, it's just a rat. So for that reason, fantastic model, beautiful detailing, but it has to go to make room for something else. Next up is the Accurascale FNA nuclear flask wagons. Now I bought these very recently with my own money. These were not sent to me as a review sample or anything like that. I paid for these out of my own cash because I really wanted them, and I run a lot of modern image stuff. But the problem is that these wagons, to my knowledge, never appear on a heritage line, and whenever they're being shunted, they're always shunted into a very secure, very specific facility. And because this layout does not support what I'm going to call through traffic, or as Charlie Boy from Chadwick calls them, scenic trains, which is a term I love, i.e. a train which goes from one fiddly yard to another and it just passes through your scene because it's on its journey somewhere else. It's not a train that you interact with. It's not a train that would do any shunting or stopping for passengers or shuttling or whatever. It's just there. And despite the fact that these are an absolutely stellar model, metal everywhere, super detailed, really, superb running on them. They run so well and they're so well weighted. They are fantastic. But I ran them twice. I shunted them into this little siding down here, and that's it. And that's not even a proper siding. It doesn't have any of the fencing that's required to store a nuclear vehicle or anything like that. So again, they've been sat in a drawer for weeks on end, not being used, not being utilised, not being enjoyed, and that is not fair. One, to my bank balance, but two, there's probably someone out there that's going to get a lot more enjoyment out of these models than I will, than having them sat in a drawer being unappreciated, because Accurascale really have done superbly well with the detailing on this model. It's absolutely fantastic. There's no arguing that point. I even weathered one of them, probably a little bit heavier than it should have been done, but whatever. You know me, I like to weather them heavily. So again, these are going up for sale. So if you want the modern image stuff, you like the nuke wagons, you want to run them as a scenic train, or you've got a nuclear flask discharge facility, let me know. Same can be said for these MHA ballast wagons, or whatever I'm going to call them. Now, I've got both the Accurascale variant and the Hornby variants of these, and again, I bought them when I could run scenic trains, and it was lovely having them rolling through the layout. And I had a big rake of 12 of these at some point, so it was a nice realistic train, clickety clack, clickety clack, and all the usual stuff. Of course, quality's there. It's Acura Scale, we know it is. Even the Hornby ones aren't bad, to be fair with you. But again, I don't know of any preserved railways which have these, and I don't know of any preserved railways which run MHA wagons in demonstration goods trains. Yes, they might have a couple for infrastructure projects, but I've got the OSA one. I think, are they OSAs? The big long ones over there. They're over there. I'll show you them there. So I've got those for that project, and again, it's just not something that I find myself running. They've been sat on the Fiddler Yard Road, on Road 3 of the Fiddler Yard, for weeks, if not months, just collecting dust. I mean, that's not weathering powder, that's dust. So again, nothing wrong with them. Beautiful wagons. This is not about quality. I'll say that now. It's far from an issue of quality. This is just me changing what I want to do with my mother railway and having appropriate stock to run on it, and finding out that actually, because I've been a bit of a magpie and bought these wagons or locomotives too early, well, my modelling has changed, or really not thinking about what I wanted to model in the first place. That has cost me a lot of money, and that is the big regret here. Not thinking properly about what I really want to run, what I really want from a model railway, and what I want from the stock to run on my model railway. And it's something that I'm learning, and thankfully model railway stuff tends to hold its price pretty well, so I'm not going to lose too much money on these when these go on eBay. This one was a weathering demonstration piece, which I did at Doncaster earlier this year. So was that one. So the weathering's a little bit all over, because I was showing people different techniques and different panels and the different strategies and employed and what have you. So it's a little bit off, but you know, it'll make a nice cheap wagon for somebody. Someone could even practice weathering it themselves, and you can take it all off with IPA and enamel thinners. Anyway, so these are also going to the great beyond. Little green Bachmann Gronk. Now this is one of the oldest locomotives in my fleet, and again, I did run it a lot up until fairly recently, when I replaced it with the DB Schenker one up there. Now, yes, there are 1,000,001 Gronks in preservation, so I could quite easily justify keeping this and just changing the running number on it. However, for some reason, I find myself not running it, despite the fact that it's sound fitted with the TTS decoder, and I've put the cool little details on the front, and I've put my little shunting bar on there, and it's a superb model and has one of my, quite frankly, my nicest weathering jobs on it in terms of rusting, detailing and what have you. I mean, this one really is a filthy beast. It is dirty. But I find myself running the DB Schenker one, which I got very recently, a lot more than the green one. So, and I prefer the weathering. I know the DB Schenker one is currently in preservation and is still being used on heritage lines across the country for, again, infrastructure work, and also as part of the diesel gala days. So again, for that reason, the little green Gronk is going to go up for sale, I'm afraid. And the red DB Schenker one will be given a match wagon, and I'll be upgrading that with lights and things eventually, giving it a shunt, a match wagon to fit a sound decoder on it, because there's not a lot of room inside there. And yes, I could put the sound inside it like I did with this one, but I want it to be really nice. So having a match wagon will allow me to take some of the internals and attach them to the locomotive, which is fine. That happens. That's prototypical. Same to what I've done with Lion over there. So again, little old Bachmann Gronky Gronk in green is more than likely at some point going to go up for sale. And finally, what I consider to be my biggest impulse purchase and one of my biggest wastes of money in terms of locomotives and rolling stock would be my American outline rolling stock. This is a Rapido SW1200 and it is an absolutely beautiful little model. It runs superbly, it's reliable, it's incredibly detailed, it runs super smooth, super quiet, and I have ran it all of 3 times. I did a review video on it and that was it. That's all I did, a review video on it, and she has just sat being dirty doing nothing, and she runs beautifully, and I am just such a Magpie purchaser that I have bought this locomotive. And I bought this from Rails actually. I bought all this stuff from Rails Sheffield, and I'll see if I can get it to go over this point because it's not, again, it's not run for literally months. It's just been, I mean, look at the dust on it. That's appalling, Craig. It's just not run, and it, you know what I mean, it's not run, so it's jerking around. But the box wagons as well, the weathering I did, the streaking work on this wagon is just beautiful. I mean, I'll just zoom in for you so you can see. I mean, look at the weathering work on that. That is a beautiful streak job. And that was all hand done with a brush. It took absolutely hours of mixing different powders and thinners, and the roof has been done the same. This box wagon, again, uses a similar sort of effect. And it's just sat. It's just been sat, doing nothing, not being used, and it's criminal. Same as this little tank wagon. I had this a long while. This is an old Lima one actually, but weathered up, it looks fantastic. And they've just been sat in drawers doing nothing, and it's appalling because I won't ever run them. At one point I intended to have a second American layout called Blood Gulch. So I haven't decided yet as to whether I'm going to get rid of these or if I'm just going to build Blood Gulch as more of a diorama and just have these 4 pieces of rolling stock. I mean, this isn't even sound fitted. It hasn't even got a stay alive on it. So it's not in keeping with the rest of the equipment on my layout anyway. So I'm not sure if I should sell the American stuff or make a small diorama, a small shunting diorama, and have it as a display piece. What do you think, guys? Should I just sell all of it? Because there is, between the locomotive and these 3 pieces of rolling stock, there is the best part of, I would say, 350 quid sat doing nothing. So what do you think, guys? What should I do with that? So there we have it, guys. That's my big, deep, dirty, dark secret. I am a Magpie purchaser. I see something shiny and I have the best intentions in the world to run it and build a layout for it, and it never happens, usually. I know I've got the Heritage Line up there, part 1, and the Heritage Line part 2 down here, and that one eventually will be rebuilt to match the same formula as this one here in terms of the baseboard size thickness, so that eventually one day I can connect the 2 together and have 2 halves of the same Heritage Line, the more backstage type stuff here where people can come see the exhibits, and then the old station which was similar to, for example, Oakworth from the Keighley and Worth Valley Railway or something like that. What do you think about the American stuff though, guys? I don't think I'm going to buy any more of it. I do like North American stock. I think it's really nice looking, and I really do love the quality that Rapido have put into that, as well as the Athern Genesis wagons. They run superbly, but I can't deny the fact that in terms of hours ran on the layout versus cost, those represent a massive gap. They really do. What's your opinion, guys? Do you have any locos or wagons that you've bought and you've just never ran them, and you think to yourself, every time you see them, you get a guilty feeling going, I shouldn't have bought them, it's a waste of money? Let me know in the comments. What do you think? And remember, it's not an issue of quality. All these are superb in terms of quality. More about you having the right stones in terms of running them. But thanks for watching, guys. I've been North Railways, and I'll see you all next week. Oh, and don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that jazz. Cheers, guys. Bye.